Have you ever felt that? That undeniable surge of outrage when you witness injustice, that deep gut-wrenching feeling when someone innocent suffers or when something just fundamentally wrong, well, breaks. It's the kind of feeling that makes you long for fairness, right? For goodness, for what is truly right in the world. Okay, so what if I told you that feeling wasn't just a human emotion, not just something we learned from society or even some biological thing? What if it's something far more profound, something ancient, etched right into the core of who you are?
It's a really powerful starting point, isn't it? And the sources we're looking at today, they dive into this with, well, remarkable depth. They really challenge that common idea, that our sense of justice is just a social construct or maybe something from evolution. Instead, they describe it pretty boldly. They call it the echo of eternity. And even more strikingly, the fingerprint of a just God imprinted on your soul.
Wow. Okay. That phrase alone, fingerprint of a just God, it definitely elevates the conversation. It takes it beyond simple ethics or psychology.
Exactly. It suggests it's foundational, something deeply, deeply ingrained in our very being.
And when you hear that, it just makes you pause, doesn't it? It really does.
Yeah.
So for this deep dive, we're kind of embarking on a journey together. We're going to unpack these fascinating sources that explore the very nature of justice. We'll look at its surprising, really ancient origins. Then, how something so fundamental could have become so, well, broken and twisted in our world. And, crucially, its profound potential for restoration. Our mission today is to try and grasp why we care so deeply, Why does injustice hit us so hard? What does that unique capacity mean for us? And what possibilities does it open up for a world that, let's face it, is desperate for healing? Okay, let's really unpack this together. It's interesting, when you look at the natural world, our sources, they pose this really stark contrast. They ask, why do humans care so much about justice when, well, honestly, animals don't? And nature doesn't, at least not in the way we understand it. And it really makes you think.
Yeah, the examples they give are quite vivid.
They are. Like, take the praying mantis. If you're a female mantis, the sources explain, and you devour your mate right after mating. Well,
yeah.
Nobody really bats an eye, right, in the insect kingdom, or even us watching. It's just part of their cycle.
Right, it's purely instinctual, no morality attached.
Exactly. Or think about a badger. Their aggressive territorial nature, taking what they want. For them, it's just survival. We don't apply moral judgment. And even a panda, these creatures we think are just overwhelmingly cute. If a panda has twins, the sources point out, it's actually pretty common for the mother to abandon one just to ensure the survival of the other, because she can really only care for one. It's like a natural selection thing.
The harsh reality of their biology.
But for us, humans, those scenarios are just unthinkable. We wouldn't justify them. We'd probably recoil in horror. It really underscores this profound, almost startling difference, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And this is exactly where our material digs into humanity's unique response. It's not just that we don't act like animals in those ways. It's what we do that sets us apart. The sources lay out this compelling list. Things like, we cry at cruelty. Think of that reaction. We protest against oppression. We legislate for equality. We actually build systems around fairness. We forgive. We restore. We mourn.
That's a very human list.
It is. We don't just react instinctively. We organize. We empathize. We actively work to correct what feels wrong. And this isn't just random behavior, you see. It stems from this deep intrinsic awareness of right and wrong, of fairness, of dignity, this unique human capacity, this ability to recognize and respond to injustice with such emotional and even systemic force. Well, it's presented as direct evidence that justice isn't just some concept we invented. It's described as part of our design, something built into the very fabric of who we are.
Part of our design.
Built in, yeah. Foundational to what it means to be human.
And this idea of design, this unique capacity for justice, it takes us right back, doesn't it, to the very beginning. Our sources bring us straight to that foundational statement in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, on the surface, okay, that's about creation, but what's its deeper significance for justice?
Well, it's presented as much more than just, God made stuff.
Yeah.
The interpretation in our sources is that this verse shows God establishing a divine precedent, right from the absolute start, a precedent for order and justice. They explain that from the first breath of creation, God brings order out of chaos, light from darkness, life from void, purpose from confusion.
Okay, so not just making, but ordering, structuring.
Precisely. He didn't just make things randomly. He meticulously organized them, gave them meaning, structured them with intention. And this act, this bringing harmony and purpose into existence, it isn't just about, cosmic housekeeping. It lays the groundwork for understanding God's inherent character.
Yeah.
It reveals this deliberate, purposeful creator who establishes a framework of rightness, of design in the universe itself. And this is critical because it sets the stage for where humanity fits in.
Right. And that leads directly to our unique place, highlighted by Genesis 1.27. God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. The sources even say this phrase, the image of God is, quote, not poetry, it is destiny. That's a really powerful statement. What does it mean for us to carry this divine image, especially when we're talking justice?
It's huge. It means we were made to reflect God's nature. And yeah, sure, that includes things like creativity, intelligence, relational capacity. But crucially, our sources emphasize this reflection extends to his character. And they state pretty unequivocally that at the heart of God's character is justice.
Ah, okay. So it's core to his character.
Exactly. So being created in his image means we inherently carry within us a reflection of that divine justice. It's not just an external command he gives us later. It's like an internal blueprint, a kind of moral compass. We are designed to embody and express this fundamental attribute of God in the world. And this is maybe why our outrage at injustice feels so profound, so personal. It's not just a preference. It's like a reflection of a divine characteristic within us being violated or ignored. We're made to mirror his integrity, his fairness. It's an incredibly high calling.
That is a massive implication, isn't it?
Definitely.
A divine responsibility, as the sources call it. What does that actually look like day to day? It sounds like it's, well, more than just trying to be a good person.
Oh, it goes way beyond just being a good person in a general sense. At its core, it means actively reflecting God by consistently doing what is right. It means trying to see the world and every single person in it through his eyes. And when you start doing that, you naturally begin to honor the image of God you see in others.
Seeing the image of God in others.
Yes. And our sources stress that this is the absolute foundation of biblical justice. What this understanding teaches us, fundamentally, is that every person, no matter their race, their wealth, their age, or their ability, carries the sacred imprint of their creator.
Every single person.
Every single one. And the logical, kind of breathtaking conclusion of that, as the sources underscore, is that every person is infinitely valuable. Now, this isn't just a nice sentiment, It's a theological bedrock with huge practical implications. If every human being has this divine imprint, then inflicting injustice on any person isn't just a social wrong or breaking a law. It is, as our sources put it so powerfully, desecrating the divine.
Wow, desecrating the divine.
Yeah. It's an offense against the Creator himself because you're defiling his image reflected in another person. This inherent infinite value means justice isn't just about rules, it's about recognizing, protecting, cherishing the sacred worth woven into every human life.
That really does explain why injustice stabs so deep, as the sources say. It's not just breaking a rule, it's much more profound. And to flesh this out, they introduce these two key Hebrew words, mishpat and tzedakah.
Yep.
Let's start with mishpat. How do they describe that one?
Right, mishpat. So the sources explain it goes far beyond mere legal rulings. It's much more holistic, active, comprehensive. It includes making things right, restoring dignity, protecting the vulnerable, seeking peace where there is conflict. So it's not just about a judge's verdict in a courtroom. It's about the active, intentional work of making a wrong situation right on every level.
Making things right. Okay, can you give an example?
Sure. Think about someone who's been economically exploited, maybe lost their livelihood unjustly, or had their reputation ruined. Mishpat wouldn't be satisfied just by, say, punishing the person who did it. It actively seeks to restore the victim, to reinstate their dignity, maybe help them find new work, bring about reconciliation, or a just resolution where there was conflict and brokenness. Or, on a larger scale, it could mean advocating for a marginalized community to regain land rights lost through historical injustice, or ensuring fair wages for workers who've been exploited. It's about establishing safe places for people fleeing violence. It's proactive, restorative. It sees the whole person, the whole situation, and works relentlessly to correct those imbalances. It's really justice as an active verb.
Okay, active, restorative. And then there's tzedakah. What does that add to the picture?
Tzedakah. The sources define this beautifully as not just moral behavior, but right relationships. So, if mishpat often focuses on the outward act of making things right, tzedakah is more about the underlying character, the disposition that drives those actions. It's about how we conduct ourselves in all our interactions, ensuring we're treating others with honor, fairness, and compassion. It's about integrity and how we relate to everyone, recognizing that God-given value we talked about. It's the kind of righteous living that builds community, fosters well-being, creates environments where people can actually flourish.
So it's the inner quality that leads to the outer action.
Kind of, yeah. It's not just avoiding wrong. It's actively pursuing goodness and fairness in all our relational dynamics. If mishpat is the just act, maybe tzedakah is the righteous heart and the right way of being in the world. It's the moral fiber that holds up a just society.
So if God created us with this incredible capacity, this divine imprint, and gave us these concepts, it feels like a monumental responsibility. The sources really drive this home. They say when God made humanity, he gave them more than dominion over creation. He gave them the stewardship of justice.
Stewardship. That's a weighty word. It's not just a suggestion, is it?
Not at all. It's a profound calling. And the sources back this up by quoting the theologian Christopher Wright. He states it very clearly. Justice is not an optional extra in the life of faith. It is part of the very character of God and therefore the calling of his people.
Not optional.
Not optional. It's not a side project, or something you do if you have extra time. It's integral to understanding and reflecting God. It implies that true faith, true worship isn't just personal piety or religious rituals. It fundamentally extends into how we engage with and try to rectify the injustices we see. It's core to living in alignment with that original design. It's about living out our destiny, really. Okay, so we've got this incredible blueprint, this original design where justice is literally woven into us, a reflection of God himself. But then, as our sources put it so bluntly, comes the tragedy. They declare, we broke it. And not just a little bit. Not just creation, not just relationships, not just systems. We broke justice itself.
That's stark. Almost painful to hear. How?
Yeah.
How did we manage to shatter something so fundamental?
It's the crucial, heartbreaking question, isn't it? And the sources explain this breaking wasn't really an accident. It was a series of choices. Humanity, in what's described as a profound act of rebellion, chose rebellion over relationship, chose pride over purpose, chose autonomy over accountability.
Choosing self over the design. Essentially, yes. Instead of humbly reflecting God's character, honoring his design, humanity decided, we'll chart our own course, define good and evil for ourselves. This act of self-sovereignty, this desire to be like God, but without God, it twisted everything that was meant for good. Authority meant to reflect God's character, twisted into domination. Power intended for service became a weapon of control. The voice meant for truth started to twist it. Hands meant to build, started to tear down. It was this deliberate, catastrophic turning away from the original blueprint, a deep corruption of justice from its very core.
So it wasn't just like individual bad acts popping up here and there. It was a fundamental redefinition, a twisting of the whole concept. Our sources really hit this hard, saying, we twisted justice into favoritism.
Right.
We redefined righteousness as convenience. Ouch. We decided what was good and evil, not by God's standard, but by our own desires. That sounds like a massive foundational shift with huge consequences.
It absolutely was. The sources describe it as nothing less than a cosmic shift. They quote Romans 5.11. When Adam sinned, sin entered the world. Adam's sin brought death, which spread to all people for all sinned. Quote, think about that phrasing. This wasn't some minor incident. It was a rupture in the fabric of reality. What happened in that initial act of rebellion, it didn't stay in Eden. The sources say it rippled outward like a stone dropped into still water.
Rippled outward.
Yeah, causing a cascade of brokenness across generations, across cultures, across civilizations. So the impact wasn't just moral or spiritual in a narrow sense. It affected the very structure of human existence, human interaction. It embedded this deep, pervasive tendency towards injustice into our systems, and maybe more importantly, into our hearts. It became kind of our default setting.
And the direct consequence of this cosmic shift, this rupture, was that justice fell. It literally collapsed under the weight of our selfishness. How did that look? How did justice operate once it was cut off from its divine origin?
Well, when justice fell, its very purpose got inverted, corrupted. Our sources highlight the stark, really disturbing contrast. No longer was justice about restoring the broken. Now it was about protecting the powerful. See the flip? Instead of lifting the poor, it became about silencing them, making them invisible, voiceless. And it was no longer about truth, but horrifyingly about manipulation, twisting facts, bending narratives to serve selfish ends.
It's chilling.
It is. And this inversion laid the groundwork for human systems built on inequality. Systems that rewarded greed, justified violence, institutionalized slavery, normalized oppression, fueled corruption. The sources give historical examples. Ancient empires, Babylon, Egypt, Rome, where conquest was praised and cruelty was masked as strength, sometimes even celebrated. They point to medieval kingdoms where peasants starved while monarchs feasted, systems designed to maintain that imbalance, and maybe hitting closer to home for some, colonial expansions where entire peoples were dehumanized for profit and progress, lands stolen, cultures suppressed. These weren't just, unfortunate blips in history. They were direct results of a justice system severed from its divine roots and twisted by human self-interest.
And the really sobering thought our sources bring up is, this isn't just ancient history. They say, quote, we still see it today. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting and, frankly, pretty uncomfortable. Where do we see this corrupted justice playing out now?
Yeah, it's pervasive, and the sources basically say, open your eyes. We see it plainly in economic disparity, right? Where wealth isn't just unequal, but concentrated in ways that actively suppress opportunity for huge numbers of people. We see it starkly in racial injustice, where centuries-old biases and systems continue to mean people are treated differently, sometimes fatally, based on skin color.
Still happening.
Absolutely. It's present in gender inequality, denying equal rights, pay, even basic safety based on gender. It manifests in environmental exploitation, where short-term profit trumps the planet's health, disproportionately harming vulnerable communities who often contributed least to the problem. We see it in political corruption, power abuse for personal gain, eroding trust, and maybe the most insidious form, indifference toward the suffering of others. Just accepting injustice because it doesn't touch us directly or we feel overwhelmed. Our sources put it starkly. What started with a lie in a garden became the reality of every empire, every nation, every heart. It's deep, systemic. Wow. Every heart? And then comes what the sources call the truly uncomfortable truth. They say, it's not just out there, it's in us. So this isn't just about watching bad things happen. It's about being implicated somehow, right? That's a tough pill to swallow.
It is. It demands profound self-reflection. And the sources don't pull any punches. They challenge us. The injustice of the world is not only something we witness, it's something we contribute to. And this contribution, they explain, takes different forms. Sometimes it's actively, through our direct actions or choices that perpetuate unfairness, maybe discriminatory practices, maybe choices that benefit us at someone else's expense. Sometimes it's silently, by not speaking up when we should, just letting wrongs happen. And maybe most uncomfortably, sometimes it's just by benefiting from systems that others suffer under.
Yeah, that one hits hard. Benefiting from systems. Right, it forces us to look at our own complicity, even if it's unintentional or inherited, examining the privileges we might have, race, nationality, economic standing, whatever, that are often built on systems that disadvantage others. It's not about guilt, necessarily, but about awareness.
Which leads to some very pointed, almost accusatory questions from the sources. They ask things like, how often do we enjoy comfort, unaware or unwilling to see the cost it may carry for someone else? How often do we look away because it's easier, speak less because it's safer, stay silent because it doesn't affect us? Oof. Those really hit home, don't they? They force us to examine our own lives, our own hearts.
They absolutely do. They're designed to highlight our individual piece within that larger picture of global injustice. The sources don't let us off the hook. They wrap up this section with that stark truth from Romans 3.23. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. That's a profound statement about the universality of this brokenness. It emphasizes that no one is innocent. No one who has lived perfectly. No one who hasn't in some way participated in or benefited from broken systems.
We're all entangled.
We really are. Think about it. Every product we buy, every political decision, every cultural narrative, we're interwoven. The final unavoidable truth presented is, we are all guilty. We are all in need. Now, this isn't meant to just leave us in despair. It's actually setting the stage for the next part, the hopeful part. Because if everyone is implicated, then the solution has to come from outside ourselves, right?
So it's a pretty grim picture we just painted. Humanity broke justice, twisted it, and we're all kind of caught up in it. Yet, and this is such a hopeful turn, almost astonishing, our sources declare, God did not abandon us. They emphasize that despite all our failures, God could have walked away, could have just let us deal with the mess we made, could have left justice buried. But crucially, he didn't. That's a powerful statement of divine persistence.
It really is. And it leads to this critical theological balance that the sources highlight so clearly. They say that justice without mercy is harshness. Makes sense, right? Pure accountability. And mercy without justice is sentimentality. Also makes sense. Just letting everything slide, no consequences.
Right, neither extreme really works for true restoration.
Exactly. Pure justice, in a world where all have sinned, would just lead to universal condemnation. The end. Pure mercy, without any sense of justice, would be meaningless. It would basically condone wrongdoing, chaos. But then, the sources reveal the divine solution. But in God, we find both woven together in grace. And this is where the profound, really counterintuitive nature of God's response comes in. His justice does not destroy us, it restores us. And his mercy does not excuse us, it transforms us. It's not just a softer judgment, it's a whole different way of engaging, aiming for healing and redemption, not just punishment. It means God's pursuit of justice is ultimately for our good, designed to bring us back into alignment with his original perfect design, a way out of that despair.
So God's answer to all this injustice wasn't just retribution, which maybe we'd expect given our failures. Instead, it was a promise, a divine promise, a covenantal commitment. What did that commitment actually look like, especially compared to, typical expectations of a holy God facing rebellion?
Yeah, this is really counterintuitive and frankly deeply comforting. Instead of the expected wrath or abandonment, his commitment was not just to judge evil, but to heal it. Not just to punish sin, but to redeem the sinner. And critically, not just to destroy corruption, but to restore what had been broken.
Heal, redeem, restore. That's a very different focus.
It's fundamentally redemptive. Our sources point out we might imagine a deity who wipes out the wicked or abandons a rebellious world, but they emphasize that is not the God of Scripture. The God revealed in the Bible is a God who remembers his creation, who pursues his people, who keeps his promises even when we break ours. This consistency, this faithfulness on God's part, is what lays the foundation for any hope of justice being restored. He hasn't given up on his blueprint.
And where did this new chapter, this divine promise, start to unfold in the narrative? Our sources point to one specific figure, maybe an unlikely one, Abraham. What was his role in starting this restoration plan?
Abraham was chosen to be the beginning of something new, a really pivotal figure. Our sources quote Genesis 18:19, where God says about him, "For I have chosen him, so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just." Tzedakah and Mishpat. But what's fascinating and really important is that the sources don't gloss over Abraham's flaws. They mention he lied about his wife, he doubted God's timing, he tried to take matters into his own hands. Very human mistakes.
Yeah, he wasn't perfect.
Not even close. Yet these failures did not disqualify him, and this underscores a crucial point. It was not about Abraham's perfection. It was about God's purpose. Through Abraham and his descendants, God intended to raise up a people who would reflect his character, live differently, embody righteousness and justice not through their own merit, but through his choosing and his power. It wasn't about finding perfect people, because, well, they don't exist. It was about his unwavering plan to work through imperfect humanity.
Okay, so God chose this lineage, Abraham's descendants, Israel, to embody this purpose. And again, the sources bring us back to those two Hebrew words, tzedakah and mishpat. In the context of Israel's mission, let's revisit tzedakah, righteousness. How was Israel meant to live that out? What did it mean practically?
Right. For Israel, tzedakah was intended to be far beyond personal morality or just religious performance. It wasn't simply rule following. It was about living rightly in relationship with God and with others. This meant treating people with fairness, dignity, and compassion. And here's the key part. Not because they deserve it, but because it reflects the nature of God himself.
Reflecting God's nature in relationships.
Exactly. Righteousness is not simply avoiding sin. It's pursuing goodness. It meant actively choosing integrity, actively caring for the widow, the orphan, the stranger. Not because it's convenient or they can repay you, but because it aligns with God's heart. It meant ensuring fair treatment for the vulnerable because they too carried that divine imprint. The sources quote Jeremiah 9, where God says he delights in those who know him, who know he exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. So tzedakah is this active relational pursuit of good, driven by knowing and reflecting God's own character. It shapes a whole society.
And then mishpat, justice. If tzedakah is the heart, the relationship, how was Israel meant to fulfill mishpat, the outward, practical side?
Mishpat for Israel was about making things right, tangibly. Actively correcting imbalances. It wasn't just theory, it was ensuring that every person, especially the powerless, is treated with dignity and fairness. So, if tzedakah is the inner disposition, mishpat is the outward, practical, sometimes forceful application of that righteousness in society. It's the concrete expression of fixing wrongs, stepping in to defend those who can't defend themselves. The law given to Israel was meant to be a vehicle for mishpat, ensuring protection for everyone, but especially the vulnerable, the poor, the foreigner, the orphan, the widow. Think of it like a divine mechanism for societal balance, where those at the bottom got special attention because their vulnerability challenged the justice that should define God's people.
What's really striking, though, is how God explicitly links their worship, their religious life, to their practice of justice. It's not just about showing up for rituals, is it? It seems much deeper.
Oh, profoundly deeper. And this is a critical point, maybe surprising for some. The sources powerfully quote Isaiah 1. God basically says he rejects their empty sacrifices if they ignore the cries of the oppressed. He asks, "What are your sacrifices to me?" He says, he takes no pleasure in the rituals if their hands are full of blood. Instead, what does he command? Wash and make yourselves clean. Stop doing wrong. Learn to do right. Seek justice. Defend the oppressed. Take up the cause of the fatherless. Plead the case of the widow.
Wow. That's incredibly direct.
It's unavoidable. True worship isn't compartmentalized. It must manifest in a life that actively seeks justice and cares for the marginalized. God desires not just laws enforced, but lives restored. Our sources summarize biblical justice beautifully here. It's deeply relational, about people, not just principles. Not about vengeance, it's about restoration. Always aiming to heal, not just punish. Not about power, it's about humility. Serving the vulnerable. Not about control, it's about compassion. Driven by empathy. It's summed up as love with courage, truth with grace, action with faith. This was Israel's core mission, show the world a just and merciful God.
So that was the mission. Incredible to be this beacon demonstrating God's justice and righteousness, a truly high calling. But tragically, as the sources state with, well, blunt honesty, they failed. How did this chosen people, given this profound purpose, fall so far?
Yeah, their failure was profound, widespread, and tragically it mirrored that human tendency we talked about earlier. The fall, instead of defending the poor, the sources say they exploited them, used their power for personal gain. Instead of walking in justice, they walked in pride, thinking they were above the principles they were meant to uphold. Instead of lifting the crushed, they crushed them further, adding to the suffering.
So they became the opposite of what they were called to be.
Exactly. The very people meant to embody God's justice became instruments of oppression. They fell into the same patterns as the nations around them. It shows that even a chosen people, without constant focus on God's character and humility, can succumb to selfishness, corruption, power lust. They lost sight of their purpose, prioritized their own desires over the mandate to reflect God's justice. It's a sobering lesson.
And in response to this failure, the sources tell us the prophets rose up. These weren't just like social critics, were they? They were messengers of God delivering a divine indictment.
Right.
What did they sound like?
Oh, their messages were incredibly powerful, uncompromising, direct calls back to God's heart. The sources quote Isaiah 10, "Woe to those who make unjust laws, to deprive the poor of their rights," highlighting systemic injustice, not just individual acts. Then there's that famous line from Amos 5, "Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream."
Such a powerful image.
Isn't it? Justice as this unstoppable cleansing force meant to flow constantly, washing away corruption. And Micah 6.8 may be the most concise summary. "He has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God." These weren't just abstract ideas, the sources stress. They were calls to action, calls to repentance. But tragically, too often the cries fell on deaf ears. Leaders ignored them, silenced them. People just continued on their way. The cycle persisted.
So, despite Israel's failure, despite the prophets' warnings being ignored, the sources say, still, God did not abandon his vision. Still, he pursued justice. Still, he longed for restoration. Still, he had prepared the way for something greater. What was this something greater, this ultimate divine intervention?
This something greater was the most astonishing act imaginable. God himself entering human history. The sources pinpoint the central turning point. So God himself came down. And the way he came, it's profoundly significant, totally counter to what we might expect. Not as a king in royal robes, not as a warrior on horseback, but incredibly as a baby born in a manger. Humility. Vulnerability.
That choice speaks volumes.
It really does. About the nature of the justice he would embody. The profound claim here is that Jesus Christ is not just a moral teacher, he is God's justice in human form. He didn't just send more messengers. He stepped into our injustice, he put on flesh, he became one of us. This is the ultimate act of identification with our brokenness, bringing justice not through force, but through presence, perfect life, and sacrifice. He was mishpat and tzedakah made flesh.
And how did Jesus' life, his ministry on earth, demonstrate this? What did his justice look like in action?
His whole life was a living demonstration. The sources list these powerful examples. He healed the leper, restoring not just health, but social dignity, bringing outcasts back in. He forgave the sinner, addressing the deepest spiritual brokenness, offering new life. He protected the woman, challenging norms that devalued women. He honored the outcast, reaching across social divides, showing grace to the shunned. He rebuked the proud, confronting unjust power, exposing hypocrisy. He lifted the crushed, showing compassion, intervening for the oppressed. In every interaction, he lived the perfect life of righteousness. He didn't just talk about justice and mercy, he embodied them. He showed what it means to live in perfect alignment with God's character, the ultimate example.
But the ultimate act, and maybe the biggest paradox, happened on the cross, where the sources say the righteous one was treated as the worst of criminals. How can the cross represent both God's justice and his restoration plan in what looks like a horribly unjust act?
Yeah, the cross is the profound paradox, isn't it? The turning point. Jesus, perfectly righteous, embodying justice, was subjected to the ultimate injustice, false accusation, torture, criminal execution. But as the sources explain, it was right there, on that cross, that Jesus took our injustice upon himself. He bore the weight of human rebellion, our lies, our greed, our indifference, our hatred, our corruption. He bore the guilt of the world.
Took it all on himself.
Yes. It wasn't just a tragedy. It was deliberate, redemptive, divinely orchestrated. In doing that, he satisfied the justice of God. But here's the key. Not by condemning us, but by sacrificing himself in our place. This is the core of the divine answer. God's justice was fully met, perfectly upheld, not through our destruction, but through Jesus' substitutionary sacrifice. He paid the price, took the consequences, so that a pathway back to restoration, to healing, to relationship with God could be open for everyone. It's both absolutely just and incredibly merciful.
And then, after that sacrifice, comes the ultimate validation. The resurrection. Our sources say he rose in power, he rose in victory, he rose as the true and eternal King of justice. What does the resurrection mean for us? For our pursuit of justice now?
The resurrection changes everything. It's the ultimate proof that everything Jesus claimed and did was true. His victory over sin, death, and injustice itself. It declares his sacrifice was accepted, sufficient. God's restoration plan isn't just wishful thinking, and the implication for us, it's truly transformative. Our sources quote Corinthians 5:21, God made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God.
A divine exchange.
Exactly. Through faith in what Jesus did, his life, death, resurrection, we are offered more than just forgiveness. We are offered new life. We are offered a new identity. We are made righteous not by what we do, but by what he has done. This means our ability to pursue justice, to live righteously, to embody tzedakah and mishpat, isn't just dependent on our own flawed efforts anymore. It comes from this new identity, this empowering presence we receive through him. It transforms our very nature, enabling us to finally live out the justice that was part of our original design.
So this isn't just about me getting saved, as profound as that is. The sources make a bold claim. The gospel is not just personal salvation, it's a global restoration. How did the early church get this? How did they live out that bigger picture?
They really seem to grasp this connection, between personal transformation and global restoration. The sources describe how they didn't just believe in Jesus, they lived differently. Their faith wasn't just intellectual, it was intensely practical, communal. They shared what they had, making sure no one was needy. They served each other radically. They fed the hungry inside and outside their community. They defended the weak, standing against the injustices of their time. Crucially, they refused to live by the world's values of power, wealth, oppression.
Their actions spoke volumes.
They really did, and it was a direct result of their transformed identity. The sources explain why. Because justice had gripped their hearts. Because Christ had changed their identity, they saw everyone as image bearers. Because the Spirit of God had filled them with divine purpose, they felt compelled to act. They understood, if Jesus, justice himself, declared them righteous when they didn't deserve it, well, as the sources challenge us, how can we ignore those still suffering in darkness? Their lives became this vibrant demonstration of God's kingdom breaking into a broken world, actively participating in the restoration Jesus started, showing what empowered mishpat and tzedakah look like. Hashtag outro. So, bringing this all together, what does this deep dive into the imprint of justice mean for you, for us listening right now? Our sources give a really direct, unmistakable call to action. To follow Jesus is to care about justice. It's not optional, it's fundamental. It's a call to reflect the character of God, embodying his tzedakah, that inner righteousness, and his mishpat, that outward pursuit of making things right. This means to treat every person with the dignity of being made in his image, recognizing that infinite value we talked about right at the start. And it's an active mandate to seek the welfare of the poor, the immigrant, the orphan, the widow, the prisoner, the voiceless. It's just part of aligning with the divine fingerprint on your soul.
And the sources are also very clear about what this isn't. They say emphatically, this is not politics, this is not charity. This is the kingdom of God breaking into a broken world. It's bigger than partisan debates or just giving money. It's about a fundamental transformation, a reordering back to the original blueprint. They then challenge you, the listener, directly. So what will you do? Will you keep living in comfort, untouched by the pain of others? Or will you dare to love like Jesus? It's a powerful invitation to move beyond just watching, to actively participating. The world doesn't need more noise, they argue. It needs people who reflect the righteousness and justice of Christ, people who will stand when it's easier to sit, speak when it's easier to stay silent, give when it's easier to keep, love when it's easier to hate, being that tangible manifestation of justice.
And that profound call, this whole journey we've taken, it really echoes Micah 6.8 last time. He has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. It kind of sums up our design, our fall, and our path to restoration.
And that's not just a command, is it? It feels more like an invitation to walk with God, to live like Jesus, to join in the healing of the world. It offers this purpose much bigger than ourselves.
And because ultimately, as our sources conclude with such powerful clarity, justice is not an idea. It's a person. And his name is Jesus.
So here's the thought to leave you with. If justice isn't just an abstract concept we debate, but a living person, Jesus himself, who embodied it completely, what does it truly mean to embody his justice in your daily life? How does knowing justice as a person transform your responsibility, your choices, your hope, especially when you see so much brokenness? What does it look like for his fingerprint to be truly evident in your soul, guiding your actions, bringing his light right into the middle of the darkness around us?